Ethan Carter had always dismissed ghost stories as foolish superstition. A logical man, he prided himself on his ability to explain the unexplainable. That was until he moved into the old house at Ravenhill. It was a sprawling Victorian home, abandoned for decades, now his, at an unbelievably low price. The realtor had avoided his questions about its history, but Ethan didn't care. A house was just wood and stone, nothing more. The first night was uneventful, though something felt off. The air inside was thick, carrying a scent of mildew and something faintly metallic. He chalked it up to age and dust. As he settled into bed, a distant creaking echoed from the hallway, as if footsteps pressed against the old wooden floor. He ignored it. Houses made noises, right? By the third night, the noises had grown bolder. Footsteps now wandered outside his bedroom door. Soft, shuffling movements, stopping just at the threshold. Ethan yanked the door open. Nothing. The hallway was empty, but the air was colder, and the scent of decay was stronger. He shivered and shut the door firmly. The worst came when he finally heard the whispers. Faint at first, like a breeze through dead leaves, but then they grew into something distinct. Get out before he wakes. Ethan's blood turned to ice. The next morning, he searched the house from top to bottom. He found no hidden speakers, no explanations. But in the dusty old attic, he found something worse. A single child's handprint pressed deep into the wood, as if scorched there by unseen fire. That night, the whispers turned into screams. Ethan barely slept. Every time he drifted off, the whispers returned, circling his bed like a swarm of unseen specters. By dawn, his hands trembled from exhaustion. He needed answers. He decided to dig into the house's past, heading to the local archives. The librarian, an older woman with tired eyes, hesitated when he mentioned Ravenhill. "That house should have been left to rot," she muttered before pulling out a faded newspaper. The headline sent a chill down Ethan's spine. Family of 4 mysteriously vanishes, only child's handprint left behind. The article was over 50 years old. A family had lived in the house, but one night, neighbors reported hearing screams. When authorities arrived, the house was empty. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, just a single child's burnt handprint on the attic floor. The case was never solved. Ethan felt sick. His house, that attic, that handprint. Ethan returned home, with the newspaper clutched tightly in his hand. The air inside felt heavier, suffocating. Every creak of the floorboards beneath his feet sent a jolt through his nerves. He couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was in this house, and it wasn't just whispers in the dark. That night, he set up a camera in the hallway, aiming it at his bedroom door. If something was moving in the house, he would catch it. He placed another camera in the attic, its blinking red light the only comfort he had in the darkness. As he lay in bed, the whispers returned. This time, they weren't faint. They were right next to his ear. "He's awake." Ethan bolted upright. A shadow flickered at the edge of his vision. A tall, thin figure standing in the corner of his room. It didn't move, but he felt to its eyes burrowing into his soul. His breath hitched as he scrambled for the bedside lamp, his fingers shaking. The moment the light flicked on, the figure was gone. The whispers, however, remained. The next morning, he checked the footage with growing dread. The hallway camera showed nothing but an empty corridor. But the attic camera, at exactly 3:13 a.m., the screen glitched, static flickering across the display. And then, A face, pale, hollow, with deep black pits where eyes should have been. It stared directly into the camera before the feed cut out entirely. Ethan felt a cold sweat drip down his back. He had seen something real. Something was watching him, and it was coming closer. Ethan wanted to run. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to leave this house and never return. But something deep inside, the same stubbornness that made him move in alone, refused to let him flee without answers. He had to know what was haunting him. That night, he locked every door, turned on every light, and sat in the living room with his laptop, reviewing the attic footage again. The figure's hollow face burned into his mind. But this time, he noticed something even worse. Its lips were moving. Shakily, he enhanced the audio. The distorted whispers unraveled, sharpening into chilling clarity. Ethan, you belong to the house now." His stomach twisted. It knew his name. A sudden crash shattered the silence. His head snapped toward the staircase. The attic door, which he had bolted shut earlier, now hung wide open. Cold air seeped down, carrying the faint scent of something rotting. He had two choices: leave now or face whatever was waiting for him. Ethan grabbed a flashlight and crept up the stairs, his breath shallow. The wooden steps groaned beneath him as if the house itself protested his ascent. As he reached the attic entrance, the air turned ice cold. His flashlight flickered. Then a hand, small, blackened, with charred skin, shot out of the darkness and grabbed his wrist. Ethan screamed, stumbling backward as the attic filled with whispers, laughter, and something crawling. The walls trembled. The child's burnt handprint on the floor began to spread, as if something was breaking free from within the wood. The last thing Ethan saw before the darkness swallowed him was the face from the video, now inches from his own, whispering, laughing, taking him. The next morning, Ethan's house stood eerily quiet. His belongings remained untouched. His car still sat in the driveway. But Ethan Carter? He was gone. And in the attic, beneath the old dust and shadows, a new handprint burned into the wood, larger than the last.